You're listening to the CinemaSnarks podcast. I'm Larry,
And I'm Ren.
and we are going to tell you how we really feel about drag films. Yes,
Love them. The
just
answer.
that's your answer. Spoiler alert, we love them. But it is June, which means it is Pride Month. And Ren and myself, both being big fans of drag and drag queens, the art form of drag, drag kings, and all of those between, we
Bio
thought it would be
queens.
fun. Bio queens, yes.
Don't
We thought
forget
it would be
about the ladies dressing up as ridiculous ladies.
we thought it would be fun to just do an episode dedicated to us talking, maybe shedding light in case you haven't watched some of these films, about our favorite films about the art of drag. Now, Ren, you are somewhat of a bio queen yourself, yes?
On occasion, I'm a theater person and that takes up all of my time, but if I didn't have theater productions, I absolutely would just be a drag queen. That is how I would get out my needs to perform. Would be putting on makeup and being ridiculous. A bit of a bio queen, sure. Yes, let's go with it.
Y'all just need to check out her makeup skills are amazing.
You can visit my Instagram.
I presume we'll be seeing a small person coming onto that Instagram soon-ish.
Yes.
In the next month or two, we'll start seeing a little person known as her baby.
Tiny baby Roland. Yes.
Her child
Yes.
is coming
soon. Yes. This child whose gender we do not yet know because it doesn't matter. We're waiting to find out.
We stand a parent group that doesn't do a gender reveal.
Absolutely
Tired
not.
of that bullshit.
We're gonna do a co-ed baby shower because that's all you actually like. That's enough. I don't think you need two gonna have a baby parties. The tiny baby will not be in makeup. I promise. Not at least until they're like 2 years old, at least.
Woo, the people will go wild. Red would get canceled quick. They should put that little baby in some makeup. Well, I think we'll kick this one off with one I know we both love. It's near the top, I believe, of both of our lists. Actually, I think it's the first movie we talked about for my Pride series over on my Chili Boy Productions channel. And that's The Birdcage.
Yes. Yep.
From the 90s, the classic with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane.
Yes.
Just killing it.
Yes. If you can get past the couple little bits of 90s cringy, it's incredible. It's just so funny. I am already a fan of farces. Basically, that's my favorite type of a comedy. But oh my God, Nathan Lane, Hank Azaria, and Robin Williams at the top of their comedic game. There's nothing that even comes close to touching it, in my opinion. Is the movie that I make boyfriends sit and watch with me to make sure that we're gonna be okay. I need to understand what one of the formative films of my life is. So the thing with it's not the costumes are not as big of a deal,
No.
right? That's one of the things that I really like about drag films, but it's the comedy. It's just such a well put together script, and the acting is so good, and the comedic timing is so on point.
It's such a shame. I know we complain about the Oscars a lot here on this podcast. But it's just such a shame that the Oscars don't respect comedies like that. Because honestly, I'd have to go back and look through the year clearly and see what got nominated. But this not being nominated for screenplay feels like an injustice. I know there was debate because I was recently doing a podcast about best supporting actor losses or not nominated. And I was like, oh, you know who I really want to put on my list is Nathan Lane for Birdcage. But I was like, is he supporting or is he co-lead? I was like, I know there's a fine line there with that supporting co-lead business.
It's just so good. I could probably go through that entire movie and just line by line, but
my top
to
three.
Be that way. What way? That way that says that you're right because you're a man and I'm wrong because I'm a woman. You're not a woman. Oh, you bastard.
Oh, good.
So good.
No, it's like probably top 3 funniest films like of all
Yeah.
time for me. It's hilarious. Everyone in
Yeah.
Hank Azaria, like, just is so ridiculous and amazing.
Yes.
Diane Weiss is so good.
Are you afraid of my watermelonness? Your what? My watermelonness, my natural heat. You don't want me up on stage with the estrogen rocket? It's so
Oh, it's
good.
so good. Like, really, yeah. We don't get as much like legit drag in this. Like, we don't get a performance as much. Like, it kind of has like the little bits on stage is like kind of just there. The big drag part obviously comes with Nathan Lane posing as the wife,
Posing as the wife and the conservative father
sneak
just
out.
falling in love with him.
Yeah, and then them all sneaking out of the club at like the
Yeah.
end of the night to sneak him
And
away
everyone is
in
in,
his
yep.
drag. And
Oh,
that's like the ridiculousness of it all. It's one of those movies where you're like, I mean, he doesn't not look like a woman necessarily, but you're also
Nathan
like,
Lane? He clearly is not a woman. Like he's not even wearing like I mean that's the thing with drag too. And that's like one of those suspension of disbelief things is that like in a lot of these movies,
no.
this is the ones that make it a little bit harder is like a woman in a man in drag does not look like a woman, right? Like a man in drag is most of the time playing with the concept of
Yeah.
femininity and they are a caricature of a woman. This
Oh,
is the reason why bio queens exist. That's why when a woman wants to dress up and do drag, it still makes sense because she's not trying to look like a woman like she normally looks.
yeah.
She's looking like the impersonation of a woman. And so Nathan Lane in the Birdcage is not like wearing any makeup. Like he's just a man in a wig. Just
This is why
Nathan
Ren
Lane.
doesn't, she doesn't go for those fishy queens that are like legitimately like beating
I
their
mean,
face to like a feminine
I
look.
find that an incredible demonstration of skill. For me, drag, the fun of drag is the ridiculousness of it, the glam, the like camp, the like next levelness of it, right? Like I actually think that RuPaul is an excellent balance. RuPaul doesn't seem like he's putting on a ton of makeup to like change the shape of his
Mhm.
face. He is a camp drag queen without it being like jarring. It's the one that won the All Stars that shouldn't have, that it should have been Ben de la Creme.
Oh, Trixie?
Trixie, stupid Trixie. There's stupid ugly makeup that I hate.
Whew.
Stupid ugly look. It's
I
horrible.
mean,
People will come for me. Once
yeah,
this is
that's true.
posted, they will harass me about how Trixie is incredible. I have no feelings on the person, their performances. I fucking hate their makeup.
No, but I think you're right. RuPaul is great. He acts like a drag, like a campy queen. You could tell, obviously, with all of
Mhm.
his humor. If you watch Drag Race, RuPaul's humor is camp to the max. That's all he likes is like
Mhm.
ridiculous. But he obviously can serve like glamazon.
Look,
That was his
yes,
thing, glamazon, and
yes,
yeah, he
yeah,
looks beautiful.
yeah. It's
And
an
this Nathan Lane,
original supermodel like that. That
yes.
was RuPaul.
Robin Williams and he play off each other so damn well in this movie. I
Yes.
mean, it's just like you said, it's two of the best comedians of
Yes.
all time in Nathan Lane and Robin Williams, both doing some of their career best comedic work
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
Like, how do
Yeah.
you get better than that?
And the timing is so good and the energy is incredible. So this film is directed by Mike Nichols. If you don't know who Mike Nichols is, you do. You love his films. He's an incredible director. But The Birdcage is one of those that like you can just see it's just so well directed, right? It's like every single shot, every single like transition, it just feels so good and so right. It's an incredible film. It's just hilarious. I love it. It is easily my favorite drag film, and it is absolutely on the top of my like favorite films of all time. It's just so good. I could watch it over and over again and never stop laughing.
What's the next movie you want to talk about, Rand?
Let's talk about Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I love this one. I would say it's probably like my second favorite drag
Yeah.
film. The thing about Priscilla, Queen of the Desert that I really enjoy is the costumes are effing incredible. That is the star of this film. The acting is really good and not in like like there are funny moments. It's certainly like a comedy for the most part, but they really do deal with reality and dramatic situations. Karen Stamp, so the Karen Stamp really is much more of a transgendered woman, and there isn't cringiness to it in the way that you often get with films that try to address these things.
Yeah.
And you look at them now and you're like, ooh. The other two are like mostly living as men that then put on drag
Yeah.
when they're in drag. So I think it's really progressive in that way. It's basically it's a drag queen road trip movie, which is wonderful. You also get Weaving, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, Agent Smith, pre-Agent Smith,
Yes.
as a drag queen, and here's at his like young hot guy hottest.
I mean, it's almost that's one of those performances that's like almost unbearable to watch Guy Pearce on the screen because he is so damn hot in this movie.
So hot. And that's another thing that the film does deal with too is like they deal a lot more realistically with homophobia and like gay bashing and what it is, what the experience really is for them. It doesn't insulate them, and it's not like there is camp in this film, but they don't live in a campy insulated world. They live in a world where it is dangerous to be a man dressed as a woman. It's a beautiful, hilarious film, and like visually beautiful. It's also like you watch it and you will cry at least once.
Really touching also with like the Hugo Weaving character's storyline. He has a kid, like this ex-wife situation, which is also, super relatable to a lot of people, especially, early 90s when it wasn't really still accepted and it was still like this weird, you probably lived most of your life in the closet. It was a really great storyline. And then we talked about the birdcage not having great costumes per se. Priscilla has amazing costumes.
They're just
this is it.
If you're not gonna like watch Priscilla Queen of the Desert, if you want a taste of like the costumes, just Google Priscilla Desert. There is a video of one montage where they go from costume to costume to costume. It's totally unrealistic. They couldn't have possibly actually gotten from this like one costume to the other, but
there's like 2 points in the movie I think that they do that. They're literally like campsite and doing like this little lip sync routine. And then the finally one at the end where they are actually on stage doing their performance. And you're like, these costumes are absolutely amazing, but between each verse, they pop up with these new costumes.
Totally.
And they play it off like it's the same performance because the whole circumstance is the same at the end. And you're like, oh, no, dear. That was 3 separate performances or 4 separate, because they like make the Sydney Opera House as part of these costumes. These weird lizards, these ostriches. I mean, they are so extravagant and amazing. Karen Stamp's character is also kind of a retired drag queen. Like, she's like, fine, I'll do it, but she's not enthusiastic anymore about all this. And just seeing,
I love a bitchy queen.
Her face, finally, it is happened to me. Like, she just is so over it on the stage, like not getting into it, while like Guy Pearce over here is just like, like really all out for it.
Yep. So I definitely class this one up way up near the top for favorite drag films.
Now that Asian bride, vagina, pussy pong thing.
That's all weird. That is all weird.
That is the one. That is the one glaring negative. Like, that's the cringe. Though it should have been cringe right around when it came out too. I don't know, but it's definitely cringe if you watch it now.
I watch a lot of movies from the 90s over again and go, oh no.
That's just a cringe moment. But other than that, literally just that one isolated moment in the film, everything else, it's really like, I don't know, it moves you a lot emotionally and makes you laugh. And it did win an Academy Award for Best Costume, so thank you for making the proper decision then. I'm going to talk about a documentary on this one. Obviously, it's like mandatory viewing, I would say, for the community, and that is Paris is Burning.
I've seen it.
It's a drag film. You wait, did you say you have or
I
haven't?
have,
Oh,
yes.
okay. I was like, oh my God, I thought you said haven't seen.
No. Mandatory viewing, you just said
Yes.
it.
And this definitely comes as a recommendation on a lot of different levels. Obviously, if you're into RuPaul's Drag Race, I do highly, highly recommend, if you still haven't watched it, to watch Paris is Burning, because so much of the terminology, so much of the, even like the names, the things that they give their names for.
Mhm,
I mean, RuPaul's, she literally does balls each
mhm.
season. All of that comes from the ballroom culture, which we're seeing in is that show Legendary, with
Pose?
well,
No.
there's Pose, there's another one now too though.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's Pose and I think it's called Legendary. Both of them are about ballroom, except I think Legendary is like a competition show rather than
Okay.
Pose, which is scripted. So, we're getting those shows now that are highlighting
Mhm.
the ballroom scene and kind of
Yeah.
expanding people's view of like what that scene was, rather than just male to female drag queens, which is kind of what RuPaul's Drag Race, since it became the most popular, it was like this big beacon that kind of skewed a lot of people's perception of just what happened in these places. And I was like, no, 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 no. That's why when RuPaul made those statements initially, which he's walked back on, obviously, about trans contestants, everyone was like, what the hell? Hold on. Like, you have been ripping off the ball scene for a long time, and trans girls in the ballroom scene have been running shit for a long time. Don't, no, no, no.
Yeah, so now they allow trans
Yes.
women on. Now they just need to let cisgendered women on, and then we'll have no problems,
Wow.
Rue.
Rue, before you retire, girl, you're getting up there. So it's like mid 60s now, girl. But
I doubt that RuPaul will ever retire.
the
I
show
don't
will
think.
be, she'll
I
cancel the
do
show.
not think that woman can possibly bear to be outside of a spotlight. Could have. There's no way.
I think secretly, as what we were talking about earlier, sometimes I wonder, because she still looks great for her age. Like, she looks amazing. Like I said,
Ageless is
she's
what she
mid
looks like.
60s.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if she gets some of those eliminated contestants backstage and just gets their blood a little bit. If she's like the
She,
wicked witch of the drag
she does the
world.
hocus pocus maneuver. Just
After they've been eliminated, she grabs them off the stage in the back room. But
we're on to you,
we
Rue.
got you, Rue. We haven't seen some of these contestants in a long time, Rue. But but no, so this really, I think,
Gives
is,
you good background to like understand the full
yeah,
historical context of like drag. I mean, it's not the full historical context.
no,
I think there's also some really incredible films that kind of like trace drag. There's a documentary on Netflix that like covers drag from like
like all the
historically.
way. This
Yeah,
gives you,
this is about like modern
yeah, it
drag
gives you
and
like,
yeah,
and it obviously takes you through several people's kind of life at the time, one
yeah,
of which dies before they're done making the documentary. So like
yeah.
this person you follow, this trans girl that we're following the movie, ends up getting
Yes.
killed and
So it's
dying.
and it's also I want to say it was made in the 80s, so it's like in the 1990. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
in the midst of the HIV/AIDS crisis. So that's
Yeah.
that's just hanging over everyone's head.
Well,
It's we've been living with COVID and it's been this like very intense pandemic thing for all of us. But like it's a very weird thing to like go and think and just like 30 years ago there was this other pandemic that was like decimating just one specific group of people and they were not getting any help with
answers,
it at
help.
all. Yeah,
The
not
government was
like
like literally doing everything they could to like not
yeah.
acknowledge and not
Yeah,
just
I mean
push it
like
under the rug.
I obviously don't think the US government did everything right. I don't think it's
No,
possible to like know everything that you need to do in the midst of the COVID
yeah,
pandemic, but they fucking did shit. They
something. Yeah,
mobilized and
got us.
how
Uh,
quickly it was taken care of and like
from
there
there, getting
was
people to take it, I mean, that's a
yeah.
different story. But the government at least wasn't trying to stick their head in the sand. We forced
Yes.
them, but
Well, I mean like a little bit, but like whatever.
just a few of them until they were
Not
forced
on the
out.
scale. Anyway, but yeah, so Paris is Burning also like contextualizes modern drag. So like the thing of it is that like prior to these balls, drag is very there's a so the big difference is that like Old drag is men in dresses is funny, haha.
Yeah.
Modern drag has moved into, I wouldn't call it like actually it's not modern. There's like this interim, so like Paris is Burning is that where the LGBTQ community starts to get a hold of it, and it's about performance and
Yeah.
the art of it. It starts to move into the, it's like Andy Warhol is getting really big at this time, and it's all about the like
RuPaul is starting to
yes.
become more mainstream.
Yes. So this is really much more about the creativity of it, and it's one of the first, and like there's a lot of gay men at this point in time that there that end up as sex workers,
Yeah.
and so drag starts to become something that is like a little bit more of a, it's a way for gay men to start to like carve out a piece
Mhm.
of society for themselves, a piece of like capitalism in the world for them, and like where it is now, and like now I think drag is really starting to move into this really fun, like it is about
Yeah.
the art, but now it's so much about like exploring these boundaries of
Yeah.
identity, and like I think there's so much fun stuff
Really
being done with like
expressionist.
face painting and makeup, and the like just basically using canvas. I think that actually I don't really watch RuPaul as much anymore, because when I first started watching RuPaul, what I loved was the costumes. I was like in love
That's
with,
spoiler alert. That's why she loves season 3,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Project
Raja's like
Runway
my
Drag Edition.
Raja is my queen. Yeah, like I was all about, well, I loved those sewing challenges. I thought
Yeah.
that to me was what was like incredible about drag,
Yeah.
was the the glue and popsicle sticks of it. The like, I'm gonna put together this look just with my skills and my
Well,
creativity.
because that's
Um,
something, me and you can relate to, and so many other people out here, like we do a lot of costumes, whether it be for cosplay or for videos or, for
mhm,
theater, whatever
mhm.
it is. And we, we ain't got that kind of cash. So we're sitting
Yeah.
here hot gluing and like
Yes.
putting
And like, I'm glad that there are drag queens with thousands of dollars that can pay incredible costume designers to build them pieces of art. But like for me, what made it interesting to watch was to see the process of the creation of these like ideas and this development. I'm less interested in essentially what drag race has become, which is like a beauty pageant,
Well, I
give or
think,
take.
I think that's another great grounding thing for Paris is Burning, is because you're really seeing these people who are here for the community. Like, and
Mhm.
yeah, they give out top prize, you get like top prize of the night for this category or that category. But a lot of them, I mean, these categories are so different. It's a lot about the dancing. You can
Mhm.
see like actual duck walking and actual voguing, not
Yes.
Madonna, not
Madonna.
what's
Yes, just in case anybody wasn't aware, Madonna stole voguing from the ballroom
did not
game.
come up with it. So you get to see all of this, and it's really just, and so many of these kids are homeless in this, like
Mhm.
it wasn't the glamorous thing,
No.
and it's also a good thing to just look back on. And I know this sounds like grumpy old person of the community, but we see these mega stars of drag these days. Like, we're getting these really popular come into the mainstream. They're getting shows on HBO, they're getting their own shows everywhere, they're coming up in movies, like mainstream films.
Mhm.
And just going back even to 1990 when this film was released is like a whole different world. Like, the world is completely different. We're
Mhm.
still amidst the entire AIDS crisis of the United States. So it
Mhm.
hasn't really been that long since Paris is Burning in happened. But if you watch that documentary, it feels like a lifetime ago. Like, it feels like, oh, this can't even be in the same like era as what we're talking about
Yeah.
now.
It's a different world, and it really helps to contextualize, I think.
And it's fabulous, and the women and the queens and the boys and the girls, all of them are fabulous in the film, so check it out. All right, Ren, what you got?
Why don't we talk about my next fave? One of the ones we more recently did, Victor Victoria. That one is a little bit less known, although if you don't know it, get on it. Julie Andrews, at the top of her game, is a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman. So it is like drag inception. It's, she gets to sing and just be incredible. We've all seen Mary Poppins, we've all seen The Sound of Music, but like, do not forget that this woman has piped from God, just full on granted to her the voice of a goddamn lead
Yes.
singing angel.
Yes.
It's also really fun, really entertaining. All the characters are really, really good. There's a little bit of campiness, so there's definitely some little like cringy moments, but overall, good, wholesome old movie fun, and set in France, and makes fun of French people a lot, and
And it's always fun. I don't know. I know that maybe it's like a trope that people don't love, but I like the idea of playing with sexuality in these contexts too. Like, of course, I love a good straight up like gay, 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 make it all gay. But I also love like when somebody's pretending to be the opposite gender and someone of that gender like starts to find them attractive but considers themselves straight. So like in this film, her partner, obviously he finds himself getting very like confused with the Julie Andrews who's supposed to be a male character. And I just find those more subtle, kind of fun, ridiculous ways of playing with sexuality and how people, it kind of plays with the notion of how kind of ridiculous that these rigid forms of sexuality are.
yeah. I also just love the trope of this girl who is in a relationship with the gangster. I love that. I don't know why. I just love that character.
Yeah,
She's ridiculous. I love just
obviously.
like the little slice of annoying. But they're also always a little bit like tougher than they're not boring. They're not boring. I think
Never
that's what it
boring.
is they're like the
Never boring.
early, like they're kind of like the clowns. They're bio queens of their type, that they are a caricature of a type of woman, and I just live for it. So
And this
there's
one
one
was
of
a
those.
showgirl too, so she was really
Yeah,
kind of a
she's
bio queen.
selling it. She does that song, CHIC, she. It's just like a whole thing. It's really good. It's really, really. I highly recommend it if you have not seen it. Victoria. Great. Let's move right on. Why don't we talk about Some Like It Hot? That is
Yeah, so
also
I'm
a
like it's
drag
hot.
film.
Yes, and this definitely, obviously, it's set in a much older, it's the oldest film we've discussed thus far,
Mhm.
black and white originally, and it definitely plays into the trope of guys in dresses are funny type of thing,
Yeah.
but it's just so
But it's
fun.
also funny.
It's so
I mean, the
funny.
movie itself
It's
is funny.
so well
It's
written.
guys in dresses are funny, but like the movie itself is funny. The
It's
script is
hilarious.
funny.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
Marilyn is funny. Like
yeah.
everybody is funny. It doesn't just rely on the cheap joke. It keeps it,
Mhm.
it keeps it punching throughout the entirety of the runtime. But once again, it's kind of a farce film as we move throughout. It has that romance element, which, I just love always.
He
But
doesn't. Sorry,
mm,
the sarcasm face
no,
on it.
I have to make sure. In case you're
Just to
just
be clear.
listening, no, spoiler alert, I don't. But it works here. I love Marilyn playing this type of character as well because, especially at this point in her career, this was more of a leaning into it rather
Mhm.
than her feeling kind of put into it. This is a little bit later in her career. This film, more than so many of her others, I think really showcased her comedic timing. And I don't
Mhm.
think people give her nearly enough credit for what a good comedic actress she was. And she's great in this one. I think both of the leading men who are in drag are really great as well. And I love that, we were talking about this as we were coming up with new LGBTQ drag films to discuss. And this one isn't really queer, but I have it's been only a couple years, but I'm pretty positive the friend, the other one who dresses up in drag, literally the last like goes off on the boat with one of the old men from that like little club that they're at the end of the movie. Like this old man is like infatuated with him and he just goes off with him. So I mean, which especially for what was this? This was the 50s, right? Is to
Mhm.
end your film, even with that little nod, is already kind of like, oh, okay.
1959 was Some
59.
Like It
Okay.
Hot.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Just I was like, I know it's later in her career, obviously, but yeah. So I mean, obviously, you love Marilyn as well.
I do.
You love Some Like It Hot?
I do. I do. I love old movies generally, but yes, Some Like It Hot is definitely one of the, I mean, it doesn't check a lot of boxes for me in terms of like a favorite drag film.
Yeah.
Just because like, again, it's the drag element of it is used purely for comedic effect. Like one of the fun facts is that so by 1959 they absolutely had color, but they filmed Some Like It Hot in black and white because Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis looked so bad in color. They were like, no, no, no. Black and white. Let's smooth that shit out.
Yeah, the best
So,
costumes went to Marilyn for sure in the film. Her
yeah.
character got the best costuming.
So yeah, so I enjoy it as a film. I don't know if I enjoy, I like love it as a drag film,
Love
like,
it
but
as
it
a
is
comedy.
certainly, yeah, and it is certainly an iconic piece of the drag movie
Yeah.
story.
Overall landscape. Yeah, as we evolve. Because again, I mean, people have been in drag for ages and ages and ages. Theater was a drag central.
When the women weren't allowed to be in the plays, the men were in
good
dresses.
old good old drag helped exclude women from the workplace. You know?
Different uses
Yeah, I
as we
mean,
move through
yeah,
time.
well, then okay. Did you have another one you want to talk about, Rand?
Oh, sure. Hedwig and the Angry Inch. That one is good.
Yeah,
One a lot. I was surprised. It actually took a very long time for me to watch which is strange because I'm a theater kid and it's one of those like theater drag iconic big deal things. But when I finally watched it, I was like, oh yeah, amazing. This is right up my alley. It's surreal, it's weird. It's fun. The costumes are, I wouldn't call the costumes, they're not like skillfully created, but they are very fun to look at.
it's
They're
like a
they're
vibe. It
definitely,
fits
it's a
the
vibe.
kind of
Yeah.
punk,
Yes. Yes.
rebellious vibe of what we're
Yeah.
going for here. It's not the glamour drag. But it
Hmm.
fits this drag.
Hmm. Yes. So yeah, I really like, I think I haven't watched it since we watched it for the review, but it's definitely I would love to go see a live production of it. I haven't seen it live before, but yeah, it's good. You liked it too, yeah?
Yeah, I loved it. I also it took me until we did our thing, and then I went and bought it on the Criterion because I
Yeah.
really loved it. I was like, wow, because
It's weird. It's the right kind of weird. It's it deals, I think I love the way it deals with real feelings and real emotions and real fuckery in a silly way. I'm a big fan of just surreal films in
yeah,
general that are I like surreal films that are still followable. There's lots of surreal films that are just like pieces of art on
yeah,
film. I mean, that's not necessarily true. I like David Lynch films too because it's poetry, but they're fucking nonsense. Right? I mean, they're not nonsense, but they're a little nonsense. But like, Hedwig and the Angry Inch
it's
has a lot more to
has a
follow, and it
through line.
has a through line, and it's just fun. It's fun with the
Like a
darkness.
dark, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love is because even with like Priscilla that does talk about deeper stuff, or some of these other films other than a documentary per se. Hedwig is just, it has that air of almost depression layered over
It
the top.
does.
Like you could
Yeah.
just feel it with the character, with the film itself. And it just has that real authenticity to it and that real rawness all
Mhm.
throughout that film. And I think it's really infectious when you're watching it. And if you vibe with it, I think you really vibe with it. So yeah, no, I loved Hedwig, and
So
pushes some gender issues too that we don't see
it does.
elsewise.
It was certainly ahead of its time.
Way.
Yeah, way ahead of its time. So if you haven't seen it yet, you absolutely should put it right on your list. Just watch it for June, for Pride Month.
Yes.
And while we're on it, we should just take a quick pit stop because if you're watching this on a video, you may have noticed the looks that Larry and I are sporting today. We didn't mention at all yet, but the precursor to Hedwig and the Angry Inch, kind of the the gate opener, which is Rocky Horror Picture Show. That is another fantastic drag film, which, you know, some people question whether or not it's like drag, but I don't. I think there is no question it is absolutely drag. There are many men wearing women's clothes in that film. Some of them not voluntarily, but they love it. Really, they're like all about it. Yeah,
Tim Curry is like literally the over
yeah,
personification of
we just
just
did a whole video for Larry's YouTube review channel. So if you want to hear us just go into depth on Rocky Horror Picture Show, you can. But for the purposes of this podcast, it's an iconic film. It's a cult classic. It is a continuing cult classic because of how timeless it is.
yeah.
The key takeaways I think from our discussion are that like it's campiness and it's like kind of chintziness. It's like almost like it's like low production quality. What gives it a lot of charm and has made it last. And like what makes it still like relevant even today is like its sex positivity. It doesn't deal with like homophobia. It's the first like bisexual. Frankenfurter is pansexual full on because he is an alien and he sleeps with everything. I kind of appreciate that, right? Because like it only feels like now have we really gotten into films that have LGBTQ characters and aren't focused on the
Yeah.
tragedy of it. But before its time, you had Rocky Horror Picture Show that was just like, have sex with everyone. Who cares who you have sex with? Is it pleasurable? Do you like it? Go for it. Like Rocky Horror was like sex positive before sex positive was like a term. I think that's what makes it just like a great piece of film. It's also it is an homage to all of the films, and so that is another fun aspect of it as a person who's like into watching movies is like, you know, all the little like crumbs and nuggets and gems that like point to different things from old movies. The fact that it's really hard to narrow it down, like right, like it's a horror comedy musical sci-fi fantasy erotica. It's like everything all at once. So it's incredible. I think it rightly deserves its position as a piece of pop culture legend.
Well, I think we'd be remiss not to at least discuss it. Both of us have wavered on it a little bit more recently, but I think it's one most people our age at least once considered a fave, and that is Tu
To
Wong
Wong
Fu.
Fu. I think I knew exactly what you were talking about. I had to say
Yeah,
it the
so
same
it's one of the
time.
most popular drag queen films. Obviously, it's
Mhm.
one of the most well known. It has an all star A-list cast, and was made while they were famous. I think that's one of the big feats. It's like Patrick Swayze, like amongst his like big fame, Wesley Snipes when he was mega popular doing this drag queen
And
film.
John Leguizamo as the most surprisingly fishy drag queen ever. For those of you who are not up on the terminology, fishy means that they look like a sexy woman. Like you would not know that that is not a woman.
So this is a drag film that doesn't quite seem to grasp the concept of what drag is.
Correct.
And I
Big
think that's
problem with
why it's
it.
kind of like in a weird position now because we're like, uh, did you watch Priscilla? Did you notice that when they got on the bus, they looked like men?
Yeah.
They only really put all that mess on when they were getting to the stage.
Yes.
This, nah, in the
Yeah.
car, in the room, like it don't
They're
matter.
like, and like, this is the thing. It's like I think that theoretically, in this film, they're really more like trans women,
Yeah.
which is kind of what they're going with. But like, it's very clear that people who wrote the film just like didn't have a good concept with the differences things, and it's a little bit because you know that that has like at some point kind of has colored for a while our perception of drag. It was a pretty big cultural phenomenon when it happened, and when it came out. But like even if they were trans, they wouldn't be dressed like that. They wouldn't. Drag is uncomfortable, y'all. Not like like
Listen,
I can't wait to take this makeup off of my face. Like it looks cool, it's fun to put on. It feels like art. I love being on stage and being fabulous. But it is not comfortable. I would not choose. And like you know, especially if you're like really going for it, they've got like breastplates on and they've got waist cinchers and all kinds of things. Like, if you're a woman and if you've ever tried any of those things, you that's just not comfortable. You put the shit on, you go to the party, to the event, to the thing where you want to look hot, and then you go home and immediately fuck, if you can get it off in the car, thank God, because you can't actually like sit in a car wearing a corset. It's just like not impossible, not possible. So yeah, so that's the big problem with
these
there's actually
men were in that damn in the car across the whole damn country,
they're in drag the whole time,
the whole movie.
and it doesn't, yeah, and so it's just a lack of understanding of like what the difference is
It's really
there.
weird. It
There's
actually is.
also there's also like the sketchiness of John Leguizamo's character Chichi is basically like courting a man that doesn't know that she's a man, and like there's ethical problems with that, and like the insinuation that like it contributes to this idea,
Yeah,
this idea that trans women are trying to trap straight
yeah.
men by pretending to be women. And that's a problem in this film because it is actually kind of like what this character is doing. In the end, she chooses the right thing and
Yes.
doesn't do anything about it, but like it is problematic.
And
Um
it's just once again, I think especially when you prop it up because they came out so similar in time. When you prop it up next to Priscilla, there are
yeah.
just so many things that you're like, oh, because Priscilla handled the whole trans thing really, really well. Terrence Stamp did not make it a secret about their identity in the film or anything, and that man became affectionate to her the way she was and how he met her, how he knew her. So there was no like Terrence Stamp trying to trick the folks. Like, no, no,
Mhm.
no. Like,
Yeah.
uh, but then we have, I mean, no offense, there are some built women, of course. I've seen them with my own eyes. But we have to admit,
Wesley Snipes is like jacked in
I
this
mean,
film.
this woman is a bodybuilder. Like, there's no other profession that this woman is because he was huge in this. I mean, it looked, and those humongous shoulders. And then you have Patrick Swayze, too, who's like 6 foot something with these broad shoulders in this film.
Yeah.
So he keeps wearing like these matronly clothes because his character's like the mom, like like the suburban like mom with these
Yeah.
updos all the time. So he's in these like coats and like so his shoulders just look enormous.
Yeah. So it's hard to watch again because there's just so many problems with it. I think at its core, the intention wasn't bad.
No.
Like, the kind of the moral of this, I love that I love the idea that these drag queens come into this boring town and they zhuzh everything up, but they make everybody's lives better. I like that as a concept. I like that is fun. And
They
Stalker
drag up the
Channing is
women and
great.
yeah.
Yeah, that he like yes, and that like they don't have to be your enemies. That they
Yeah.
can be a beautiful piece of making your town and your world better. Some of the core concepts are good. I would actually honestly love to see something that was kind of like a remake of
Mm-hmm.
it that like
Yeah.
took the core kind of concept of it, changed it around a little bit so that it was, you can even play, I would love like a Peppermint or somebody, like somebody
Oh, I
who
love that.
is a trans drag queen that can come
Yes.
in and kind of like can like play with that, can really explore that this idea of like, well, no, this is a performance. This is me
Yeah.
pretending to be a glorified,
Yeah.
a theatrical version of a woman, but this is me.
Me.
This is who
Yeah.
I am. I think there's a lot of things that could be done, like revamp this and make it something that is thoroughly beautiful and not like 50% just like hard cringe.
So in the remake, would we still have RuPaul come down in a Confederate flag dress?
I think so. That actually would be okay with me. I think, yeah, why not?
You know,
That's
good time.
incredible. That is okay, but that is what drag is designed to
That's drag.
do. It is, yes, the drag make fun of the bullshit is
And it's like,
a
of course,
weapon
if a
against the big
Southern white queen did it, we're throwing stones. Listen,
correct.
I'm sorry, girl. We're throwing
Correct.
apples. We're throwing whatever we can get our hands. But a black woman comes out
Yes.
in a Confederate flag gown. You know what? It's a protest. It's a now become a political protest.
Yeah. It's also especially like I'm pretty sure there was a time period and I want to say it was like kind of similar where like there was a lot of shit about like people arguing about the American flag and whether or not you could burn it and whether or not it was constitutional and whether it should be legal and like all of this shit. Like to cut up a Confederate flag and then like turn it into a dress, that is a fucking like baller ass move.
Hey. But all right, well, that was our picks for some of our favorite drag films from throughout history. Let us know which ones did we miss as we talked about these. Which ones are your favorite drag films? You
Mhm.
can sound off over on the YouTube video version in the comments, or you can hit both of us up on Twitter. Ren, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at RenniePoo13, or you can find me on uh, Twitter if you want to scream at me and avoid. I don't look at it that often. At Ren Manley. But the best place to find me is on my theater company's website, audacioustheater.com. We are going to be doing a summer production of The Great Gatsby. So if you're around, you can go to one of Jay Gatsby's fabulous parties. And if you're here listening to our fabulous podcast about fabulous draggy movies, then this is probably right up your alley. So go check it out.
Perfect. And you can find me at Chili Boy YT over on Twitter and Chili Boy Productions on both Instagram and YouTube. Well, thank y'all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.